within the week, 2 weeks ago, give or take, I got a comment talking about, on one of my videos, the Young Turks fan, and basically the comment was along the lines of, he said a lot of stuff, so this isn't a video of me insulting him, and I'm not trying to strawman him, but one of the things that he said in his comment was, why do left-wingers seem to be the only ones who care about legalized bribery and bought and paid for politicians? Why is it that the right is not interested in these things? So I responded to him, see Justin Amash, Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Austin Peterson, Penn Jillette, Sam Harris, John McAfee, Gary Johnson, Ron Paul. This is a right-wing thing. Right-wingers are paranoid or petrified of the government becoming corrupt, of the government being bought and paid for. Conservatives are so paranoid of a government takeover that they are both literally and legitimately stockpiling these. So I don't know that I accept the premise of right-wingers not being concerned about corrupt politicians. I think what you're doing when you say that is that you are trying to lump all right-wingers into one giant category of individuals. You're trying to lump right-wing extremists like white supremacists, KKK, anybody along that line, or even right-wing fascists that love Adolf Hitler or anything like that. You're trying to group them all in as the same type of person. You are trying to say that libertarians, constitutionalists, fascists, neoconservatives, paleoconservatives, the religious right, and so on and so forth, they're trying to say that they are all the same. And they're not, and it's not that simple. You can't just say that they're all the same people. Like I said, conservatives are terrified of a government takeover. That's why they are stockpiling guns and ammo. And that's why conservatives are saying that we shouldn't be involved in this, that, or we shouldn't be having our hands in every single event that happens overseas. And yes, there are right-wingers who pride themselves with a big military. And it does seem like right-wingers support that when you do have people like George W. Bush who get elected. But here's the thing about most of the Republicans that have been elected. They all have ran a platform on anti-war, of anti-interventionism. And the only one who didn't was Mitt Romney. And he lost to Obama, who was. Ronald Reagan ran on ending the Cold War. George W. Bush ran on non-interventionism. That is something that you've seen historically throughout the right. And if you do consider Donald Trump a true Republican, which a lot of Republicans don't think there is a consensus of right-wingers who like Donald Trump. The right is in a civil war right now just as much as the left has been in. There's so many different types of right-wingers that you can't just group them all together. There's a lot of infighting. But yes, for the most part, they united to vote for Donald Trump to stop Hillary Clinton. And I do acknowledge that Donald Trump had less popular vote than Hillary Clinton, but they both knew that they were going for the Electoral College. So like I said, I don't accept the premise that right-wingers don't care about government corruption or politicians being bought and paid for by corporations. The only difference between this is between our solution to getting money out of politics that create legislation that basically benefit the rich is that we have a complete different solution, which isn't for the government to seize the means of production. We're saying we need to give the government less power. It seems there is a consensus on the left side of the platform, on the left side of the aisle, that we should regulate corporations via the government. But when you say that, you are ignoring the fact that the government are the one who writes the laws. And yes, they are paid for by big corporations. But you have to acknowledge the fact that a corporation has almost no power unless the government allows it to have power. The government, Congress, and a lot of the departments that were created through the executive branch that are really unconstitutional, who write laws, control a lot in the economy. And what happens is you do create a monopoly on corporations. If you give corporations the power to buy politicians, so it's not corporations that have power, they have money, which yeah, can go a long way, but you have a government body that can write legislation which drowns out any competition. Because one corporation, one business is not a problem unless there is no other businesses that can compete with it. And it's so expensive and so risky, especially in our climate, to start a business to compete with a corporation. Now, I'm not saying that the free market is going to cure everything, that we're not going to have any problems whatsoever. You're always going to have problems. But the right-wing solution to it is we don't attack the corporation necessarily. We say, hey, if the business is there. By the way, I should note that businesses and corporations are not the same thing. But I think we should note that corporations only have the ability to give money to politicians to write laws because these politicians have the authority to write laws. So the answer isn't having businesses being controlled by the same politicians that are paid for by the corporations. The thing is, the solution is, on the really extreme fringe, is that we abolish the government completely. That's the anarchist perspective. That's the right-wing perspective, anarcho-capitalism. Minarchy or constitutionalists say that the government should not have authority to write certain laws, therefore giving power back to the people. Therefore, in cities, you will not get arrested if you try to sell lemonade on the street corner. And this is seen countless of times. This is seen over and over again. A girl was getting fined per day because she was braiding hair because she didn't have a license to braid hair. And they said that she had to take a class in order to braid hair to become licensed. And as a result, she can no longer braid hair. And this class was pretty expensive too, so it was really more financially consistent and logical for her to find a different job that wasn't in the hair industry. And this class that they told her to take didn't even cover the type of hair braiding that she did. Or when a little girl is trying to sell stuff but she doesn't have a business license, therefore the cops say, hey, you can't sell this, but you can beg for money. That is why there's no competition in the economy, which is what gives corporations power. So the right-wing solution isn't to give government control over corporations, is to give government less control over corporations. The government's job is to protect the right of the individual, not to try and put a one-size-fits-all regulation on the economy, because that's not how it works. Competition works, and you can argue for some regulation. I'm not saying that, anarchy is the way to go about it. I'm saying less regulation is better. And if there are certain regulations that you need, do it on the state level, the constitutional way.